Jesus, you are the only one for me. You make me understand the reason to live. I bore the thorns so I can wear a crown. And though I stand alone, it doesn't matter at all. You are there for me. Jesus, you are the only one for me. You make me understand the reason to live. You bore the thorns so I can wear a crown. And though I stand alone, it doesn't matter at all. You are there for me. Fallen down so many times, yet you have picked me up from the bottom of sin that held me for so long. I'm straight away from your side. Now I'm running back to you. Now I'm free again. Jesus, you are the only one for me. You make me understand the reason to live. You bore the thorns so I can wear a crown. And though I stand alone, it doesn't matter at all. 'Cause you are there for me. Lead me, oh Lord, and I will follow you. Lead me, oh Lord, all the way to Calvary. Jesus, you are the only one for me. You make me understand the reason to live. You bore the thorns so I can wear a crown. And though I stand alone, it doesn't matter at all. You are there for me. And though I stand alone, it doesn't matter at all. You are there for me. You are there for me.
Because you were there for me. Thank you, Arun, Rebecca, Edgar, and Willie. What a song, eh? Jesus must be the only one for us. And if he's for us, then who can be against us? Amen? We're so glad that you've joined us for worship today. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you for coming on a cold day. Hope you're feeling a little warmer inside. And I hope you can find that Royal Oak is a place where you're welcome and where we love to have more and more visitors joining us for worship. And if you've been away for some time, welcome back. We're so glad that you're home. And we have a special treat for us today. We are starting a new series as we're building on our theme of belonging for the year. And this series is all about this funny man named Joseph from the Old Testament. Perhaps we've seen the movie about him. Perhaps we've read or heard a little bit. We want to go deeper into the life of Joseph. And it's all about how he was a man of family. So the series is called Dream On. Can you say to your neighbor, Dream On? That's what we're doing today. Jana grew up in a broken home. She only met her father a couple of times, mostly in prison. Jana's mother was an alcoholic. Regular visitors came in and out of her home, and it was all in her little one-bedroom home trailer. Many times Jana was left alone to fend for herself. Her mum was always showing favoritism to her brother, who ended up in jail and for accidentally killing her cousin. Then when Jana was 9, her mum gave her away to a family moving out of town. Can you believe it? Her mum gave her away. True story. Jana's family is one of many today which is dysfunctional, which is broken. It's a broken home, and that's the first picture we want to get from Joseph's life. Most of the amazing people that God uses are those who come from the most horrific backgrounds. And perhaps you can relate to Jana. Perhaps there's been a lot of junk that's happened in your upbringing or in your home. There has been in mine. And the most wonderful news for us today is that God loves to use broken things, because there he's able to be even more glorified. So this is what we're wanting to find from Joseph's life to begin with, how he comes from a broken and yet God-glorifying home. There were once two brothers who would always fight over things. They would fight over their toys, they would fight over their food, and they would even fight over their friends. One day as they were coming to the dinner table, they were still fighting, and Mum said, boys, remember that you need to be like Jesus and forgive each other. So one of them looked at the other brother and said, you be Jesus, I was him last week. The answer to a broken home is to find Jesus. Amen? Let's pray. To the God of heaven, we thank you this morning for Jesus, and that because of the Lamb that was slain, that his power still reigns upon your church today. So we lift him up as the head of Royal Oak Church, as the Lord of our lives, and come asking, what would your word be for us today? Teach us, inspire us, change us, and get us even more ready for Jesus' soon return. In his name we pray. Amen. So open your Bibles with me to Genesis as we dive into this broken story. Now, a bit of a disclaimer. We're going to be going into some really uncomfortable topics today as we talk about the broken home of Joseph. I feel when we dive into God's Word, it's really important that we're honest with what it's saying. So we're not sugarcoating anything this morning, okay? Secondly, this is going to be something that we can find a lot of practical tools to take home with as well. So have any of you ever seen one of these before? This is one of my favorite things. It's a plate. If you know me, I love to eat. So usually when everything's getting busy at home, sometimes we'll be getting our food or pulling out the plates, and one of these can actually break. Anyone ever broken a plate before? Yeah. It's really awkward when there's lots of people around, but it happens. I've broken a plate many a times. I actually broke one last night as we were having our dinner together. So now if we break a plate, and let's assume that it's not shattered in tiny pieces, it's just 3 or 4 pieces broken, like something like that. Now, in order to put the pieces back together, do we have to come close to the plate or go from far away? You have to come up close, right? You have to have a look at where the cracks are and how they can join together. The same story when it comes to the broken parts of our homes, of our lives. In order for God to mend them, we have to come close to them so that he can work his wonders. So here we go in the Bible, Genesis chapter 27, as we begin with Joseph's father. Usually it's good when we dive into what's happening in our lives or in our homes that we work out what actually happened before we came. So here we go, Genesis 27. Sorry, it says 28 there. Let's come to Genesis 27, and we're starting in verse 19. Now, who was Joseph's father? Perhaps you can help me out here. What was his name? Jacob, absolutely. Did Jacob have any siblings? Yes. What was his brother's name? Esau. All right, so we're on the same page. Reading from verse 19. Jacob said to his father, wow, these references are way off, my apologies. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. Notice here who Jacob is impersonating. He's coming before his own dad and saying, because his father's blind, and he says, look, it's me, Esau. My goodness, the nerve on this guy. The actual background is it wasn't just Jacob who was wanting to do this, it was his own mother who was setting this up too. Verse 20, but Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? Speaking about the game that he brought, the food. Because the Lord your God brought it to me, he said. Well, so he's really involving God now. He's not only lying, he's saying that God's been part of it too. Verse 21, Isaac said to Jacob, please come near that I may feel you. So Isaac's like, something's a bit fishy here. Let me just check if it's really you. Jacob's one step ahead of him. Whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He got some hair and put it up his arms because Jacob was the hairless one, Esau was the hairy one. So he's like, it doesn't sound like you, but it jolly well feels like you. My goodness, what's going on here? Verse 23, and he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. Notice the kind of family that Joseph's was built on. Joseph's home was built on. A family of lies. Not only was his father in on this great divisive plan where he stole his brother's blessing and took his birthright before that, but his own mother was in on it too. My goodness, the deceit that happens in a home sometimes. Now, it didn't only stop there. Notice how Jacob continues on the cycle. Come over to chapter 29 with me now. And this is where we read of what's happening with Jacob and his own home that he's building. Let's see if it's right here. Yeah, it's chapter 29, verses 25 to 28. Read with me. Chapter 29. So it came to pass in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. Jacob had just been married. He'd been waiting for several years so Laban, his father-in-law, could give him his wife. And who was the one that he was wanting? It was Rachel. And imagine the look on Jacob's face when he woke up in the morning, and who's lying there next to him? It's Leah. So it came to pass in the morning that, behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, what is it that you've done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? Interesting here that Jacob, his name literally means the deceiver, he's asking why Laban's deceived him. Well, mate, you're getting the same treatment that you're offering other people. 26, and Laban said, it must not be done so in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. So, okay, he's bringing out all the regulations. Fulfill her week, we will give you this one also for the service which you will serve me with still another 7 years. In other words, all right, you really want Rachel? Serve me for another 7 years and she'll be yours, mate. Then Jacob did so and fulfilled her week. So he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife also. Imagine how Leah felt when they woke up in the morning. She looks over at Jacob and he's like, ugh, who are you? The poor lady, she wasn't wanted. And it was Rachel that he still worked another 7 years. Okay, darling, see you after work. Go and work for your new wife. I'll have the dinner ready. The deceit that's living in a home, eh? This was the kind of family that Joseph came from. A home that was built on trickery, that was built on lies. You know what's incredible is that while we're not asking for the blessing of our Father, or while we're not marrying two people, there's still a lot of trickery that happens in our own homes too. A lot of stuff that I'm keeping to myself and deliberately hiding from my loved ones or from those around me. Sometimes we hide for good intentions, but did you know that when it comes to lying, there's actually something deeper that we're doing? We're not just keeping something from someone or protecting a bit of information. What we're actually doing is hiding ourselves. What we're actually doing is saying to someone else, you know what? You can see a bit of me, but I'm not going to let you know who I really am beneath the surface. We're hiding ourselves, eh? And lying comes in lots of different ways these days. A lot of ways, too, that can almost seem plausible, almost seem acceptable. White lies. These are the ones which they're really small. They're almost insignificant, okay? And usually they're going to be shared so we can kind of just cut a corner or get ourselves out of things. Now, I'm not here to say that we better not be lying, otherwise such and such is going to happen to us. But let's make sure that we don't sink into the habit of just hiding things from people. Because the thing about lying is it can get addictive, eh? You'll lie to one person, and before you know it, it's like sick in nature just to lie to others, to keep these white lies. And what becomes even an advance from that is it becomes second nature for us to hide ourselves from other people. And it really, really can damage our hearts. Here's another one. Broken promises. Sometimes we can love making vows, sometimes to our kids. Don't worry, we'll make sure this happens, or this is what I'm going to make sure happens later on in the year. And we can be a home that is built on promise after promise after promise. But they may not always be kept. Let's make sure that our words are always kept, eh? Here's another one which is interesting, and it's spoken about a lot in psychology. It's fabricating or exaggerating the truth. This one is even more used today, where you'll tell a story, and instead of actually telling it as it is, you'll just stretch it a bit, just so it kind of sounds nicer, or it sounds funnier, or it's more accepted by those who are listening. So this is where we'll take something that's real, and we'll just stretch it a bit, so that, I can look a bit better, or it can sound a bit nicer, right? This is a form of lying. This is a form of hiding, actually, the true story. And sometimes it's okay to talk about something, but if you're telling the truth, let's stick to the truth as a people, eh? Because if the lying is happening, again, what we're doing is we're hiding the true picture. We're hiding who we really are. Colossians chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge, according to the image of him who created him. We're seeing the real picture here behind truth, behind avoiding the lies. It actually reflects our Creator much better. You see, the things that we're communicating to each other, the things that we're doing, it's not just saying, hey, that's what I'm all about. It's pointing back to Jesus and saying, this is what my God is all about. So let's live according to his image, eh? His image of truth. As we're building this picture of what happened in Joseph's home, the first thing I'd like to bring to us is that we are a home that is built on truth. Maybe for us here, there are some things that we've been hiding for decades and no one's ever known about it. If it's something that's personal, it doesn't relate to other people, then that's fine. It's just between you and God, which needs to be worked through. But if it's something that involves those around you, those who deserve to know, those who can keep you accountable, I'd encourage us to stop hiding, to come out, because when we do, as Jesus says, the truth will set you free. All right, so first we need to be a home that's built on truth. Let's take it a little further now and come to what happens next in Joseph's father's home. Genesis 29 again, and we're looking, look, we've got the chapter right now. Thank you, Lord. Chapter 29, starting from verse 31. Now, we've already learnt the dispute that's happening between the wives. Leah wasn't even wanted. Jacob worked for another 7 years, and now he's got Rachel as well. So he's got two wives. And, it's always interesting when there's a kind of family that's in some way has been broken, and the broken pieces come together. It can be a little awkward. Listen to how this happens here. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. It's amazing how God leads sometimes, eh? The one who God really helped out here was Leah. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name, what's the name? Reuben. For she said, the Lord has surely looked on my affliction. Now, therefore, my husband will love me. What's interesting here is Leah was convinced that if she had a son, that all of a sudden her husband's heart would be won. All of a sudden Jacob would start loving her. What do you think? Do you think that really happened? Sometimes we think having a baby is the answer. Young people, it's a big lie, okay? I imagine Leah was walking around the house saying, Jacob, I've got your boy. I'm the one you want now. Rachel, you haven't got one of these. Sorry. Then she conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. Imagine these names for a child. One of them was called affliction. The other one's called unloved. Affliction, time for dinner. Unloved, let's go and hit the sack. Oh, it doesn't quite sound good, eh? She conceived again and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore, his name was called Levi. Attached? Come on, let's get ready for school. It wasn't working. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, now I will praise the Lord. Therefore, she called his name Judah. Then she stopped bearing. So the final child, she called him praise. That's what Judah literally means, eh? But notice how Leah was trying to play the game. She wasn't praying her way through the tough stuff that was happening in her home. She was trying to fight back and trying to win Jacob's heart through what was happening in the bedroom. What's even more interesting is how Rachel responds now. Check this out. We probably know the story well, but read along with me, chapter 30 from verse 4. So initially, Rachel couldn't give birth. She was probably trying a lot, but it wasn't working. So the most filthy thing happens in their home. She gets her maidservant, someone who's not married to her husband, someone who's only been serving her, and she tries for Joseph to conceive through her. Then she gave him to Bilhah, her maid, as wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Now the story is getting so much more twisted here. It's not just Leah who's had 4 kids and is blowing her trumpet about it. Now Rachel's like, two can play that game. Bilhah, come on, my dear, let's do this. So sons are popping out of trying to win Jacob's heart. So here's this guy who's deceived his way, and it's happened backfiring on him through life, and now his wives are playing the lustful game against him. And you can quite see that Jacob is happy to go along with it as well. One of the other big things that's cursing us as a nation today, globally, is lust. Is lust that is in our homes. Is the lust where instead of appreciating the one that we've made a covenant with, our eyes are looking elsewhere. And the internet is running wild today. Did you know that globally, the most well-advanced money-taking industry isn't any sporting industry? In fact, all of the sporting industries together, including the multi-billion-dollar ones, which are across the States and the UK, none of them amount to the amount of money that pornography is getting today. And I'm saying it loud and clear because this is a huge issue for our churches today as well. So I really appeal to us as a church, and especially to us men, and all of us, we're designed to enjoy intimacy. But the trouble is that it's publicized so much today that lust is at the fingertips of our buttons or from our computers. I really encourage us to stand up and to start making each other accountable to this. This is something which must not stand in our homes because it's insidious. It becomes a part of our life. It takes over our feelings. It destroys marriages. And it can destroy a person's sense of intimacy. Let's make sure that we're a people who are allowing God to have control over this part of our lives, eh? And lust doesn't just come from this side of life. It comes from the way that we're longing after different things. But in the case of Jacob's home, this was a core area that it was truly hurting. So I really challenge us and call us to, if you're struggling with something like this, talk to your spouse. Talk to those who you can trust and come clean and seek help, because this is something that God can surely give us power with, but as long as we keep it hidden, it's only between us and the enemy. Let's read on here, verses 9 and 10. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob as wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. So the story goes even on. It's not just about Rachel's maidservant. Now Leah's like, oh, you want to do that, eh? I've got a maidservant too. Let's see what we can rustle up here. So the filth that was happening in the home, it didn't just stop at Bilhah. It grew now even more to Zilpah, and as the story goes on, Rachel was able to give birth in the end. That was Joseph's mother too. So imagine this kind of a home. You're born into a place and your dad's got 2 wives and 2 other ladies that he's mucking around with. Oh my goodness. And this was a man that God was longing to use. This was a man that God was able to bring revival to their home and to their land through. Isn't God amazing? So I'd like to just pause on that just for a moment and just turn to our young people as well. I've found that one of the biggest challenges for our young people is actually to wait. And you know what I'm talking about, young adults and teens. It's actually that when we're in a relationship, to make sure that we're not going to dive straight into what we're meant to do when we're married. And what's actually widely done today is not waiting. I think the average age for someone who loses that part of their life is about 15 now. Can you believe it? 15. So I really want to challenge our teens. If you're in a place where you're still able to wait, okay, don't let some guy who's got no patience push you in the wrong direction. It's not worth it. And if he can't wait, he's probably not the right guy for you, okay? And if it may be too late, it's not too late to still protect the gift that God has given you, eh? The intimacy that you can have with those around you, it needs to be honored. It needs to be protected. And don't let someone else tell you that it's not important. Because if they're trying to take that gift away from you, then they're not worth being part of your heart, okay? So I think we can all relate to this principle. No matter where the standard has been in the past, let's be a church who bring it right back up to where it belongs, where it's sacred. And I know there's a lot of rubbish that's happening around us, but we can hold the bar high and make sure that we're protecting the gift, okay? So let's do that as a people. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 14. Remember I said we'd be talking about a few things that aren't usually spoken about in church today. Marriage is honorable among all, and the bed undefiled, but fornicators and adulterers God will judge. Let's remember the highest place that God has called us to retain this covenant love. It's in the bedroom, eh? So let's keep ourselves honorable to God, honorable to each other, and life is always a lot sweeter in that place. Remember, I'm not saying this out of fear, so that we'll be saying, oh, God is going to do something bad to me. It's definitely taken account of. But when we're involved with this kind of a thing, it not only hurts us, but it actually has a long-term effect on us as well. I have counseled with people who have made some really silly decisions early on in life, and for decades and decades, they never dealt with what happened early on. And because of that, they were never able to enjoy the gift later on. So let's make sure we're keeping that part of life honorable to Him. So, our home can not only be built on truth, but it can also be built on loyalty. Let's stand by the commitments we've made, even the commitment to remain single. And let's honor that commitment that we have with God and keep loyal in our hearts, okay? Every single one of us are involved with these battles. So let's keep each other accountable too. All right, so the story goes on with Jacob. And what I love about this is God never leaves us hanging. In fact, a lot of these things changed once we get to Joseph's life. So there's good news for us too. He broke the cycle. Genesis chapter 34 now, and we're coming to the final segment of this message. Now, some of us may not realize this, but Joseph didn't just have 11 brothers. He also had sisters as well. One of them, her name was Dinah. Let's read about her. Verse 1. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and violated her. So what's a horror here is that for a young lady who's just enjoying her day, she was physically raped by this man, okay? Verse 3. His soul was strongly attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the young woman and spoke kindly to the young woman. Oh, it's such a typical man thing. You see something and you just want it. You're running after it, eh? His name was Shechem. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, get me this young woman as a wife. He's a bit bossy, eh? He's just calling out the demand to his father. Here we go. Here's where it starts to get interesting. Verse 5. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with the livestock in the field, so Jacob held his peace until they came. Notice how Jacob deals with his daughter who's been attacked. He doesn't deal with it himself, which he should have. He's like, you see, Dinah's got 10 other brothers around at the moment. I'll let them sort out this joker who's done this to my daughter. So he holds his peace and he lets the brothers, all of his sons, come and see how they're going to respond. Verse 7, and the sons of Jacob came in from the field, and when they heard it, here we go, and the men were grieved and very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing which ought not to be done. Now, I think their response is pretty understandable, eh? If you learn that this kind of a thing has happened to your sister, to someone who's close to you, of course you're going to be annoyed, right? Of course you're going to be angry. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. How are you going to deal with that anger? How are you going to deal with the junk that's happened to someone close to you, or even happened to you? Notice how the brothers respond. Verse 13. But the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father and spoke deceitfully because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. All right? So they're going to bring a plan, but they're going to bring it with deceit. They're about to lie and try and catch them off guard. Verse 22. Only on this condition will the men consent to dwell with us. Because Hamor came along and said, look, can't we all just be one happy family? My son's been involved with your daughter now. Let's just get along. This is how they're willing to get along. Only on this condition, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. So these guys are clever, eh? They're saying, all right, you want to be one happy family? Every guy in your camp has to go ahead and have this special surgery done, okay? And these were the old days. They didn't have anesthetic then, all right? So imagine that. Hamor's like, and me too? Ooh, what on earth is this about? Remember, this is the way that in Abraham's time that they would have a physical sign that they were truly from God. So, because they were really wanting to go ahead and keep the peace, they went ahead with this move. And look at what happened when they had chosen to be circumcised. Now, it came to pass on the third day when they were in, what's the word? Pain. Of course, it's going to hurt. That two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. These jokers, eh? They took things into their own hands. Verse 26. And they killed Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went on. Now again, these guys had every reason to be upset, had every reason to be angry with Hamor's camp, with Shechem, his son, and with everyone else there. But notice how they dealt with it. They took it into their own hands. There will always be rubbish that's on our fingertips. There will always be things that we need to deal with, that we need to be fixed around us. But notice who does the fixing in this story. It's Jacob's family. What a shocker here, that for a time when you can be reflecting the very God who's called you out of the land of Ur, that instead you take things into your own hands and you start saying, you've done that to my sister? Well, I'm going to sort you out now. Anyone can throw a punch back. Anyone can curse someone who's cursed them. Anyone can criticize another person when they've done something wrong. All of us can do that. But it takes a real child of God to take the time and be patient with someone who needs to change. Really want to appeal to us today that as we are surrounded by so many things that need work, so many things that need to change, the people who live in our home, the people who we work with, the attitude we can see on our loved ones, that we don't take things into our own hands. Now, I'm a culprit myself, often for speaking out of line, often for saying the wrong thing, and actually trying to take things into my own hands. But we can make this as a recommitment and as an ongoing standard that we aim for. That we won't be a people of retaliation, but we will be a people of compassion. Compassion. Well, what good is that going to do? How on earth are they going to learn their lesson? You see, when we have compassion, we actually allow God to step in. Did you know that by telling someone that they're wrong, it doesn't actually change them? Even if you beat it into them, it doesn't actually change what's happening inside of them, eh? But what we can do is create the right environment for them to change. I was reading this morning in my devotions about how Jesus was well aware of how cunning Judas was. And not once did he call him out of line. He could have so many times, but he deliberately showed this man what a loving, compassionate example was. And for some of his other disciples, that example worked. For Judas, it didn't. But it wasn't the job for our Savior to call him out and say, look, you're doing this wrong, you better fix it now. It's our job to create the environment for God's Spirit to step in and to start changing others. So how are you creating the environment for change in your home? How are you creating the environment for God to have more control? Not about us having more control, eh? That's how more rubbish happens. We need Jesus to have more control. So if there's an area in your life, maybe in your own heart, where you know that a change needs to happen, I encourage you to step back, let go, and to have a perspective of compassion. Remember, compassion doesn't say, I'll just keep my mouth shut and wait for something bad to happen again. Compassion says, I see the need, I'm going to do what I can do to meet it, even though they've never done anything to deserve it. You see, when you go out of your way to reflect God's heart with someone else, it does something to them. It infects them. It influences, and the Spirit is able to do so much more. Remember when Jesus stood there, and there were 5,000 hungry men, which tells us that there were actually more women and children as well. It doesn't say that he was like, oh my goodness, where are we going to get the food to feed these fellas? It doesn't say that he was worried about the money like some of his disciples. It says that he had a heart of compassion for them. There may be big mountains among us, and we're wondering how on earth God is ever going to sort this situation out. Let's let go and have a perspective of compassion. This is the way that God has called us to respond. Notice what we're told in Spirit of Prophecy. The spirit of hatred and revenge originated with who? This is where it comes from Satan. And it led him to put to death the Son of God. Whoever cherishes malice or unkindness is cherishing the same spirit, and its fruit will be unto death. So we all have reasons to be upset and angry, but when we're cherishing the revenge that we can be having, it's really going to do a lot more damage, even to that person, beyond that person. It's going to do damage to us as well. So I really want to call us to being a people of compassion, eh? Before we wrap up, I just want to invite Kirsten to come and join us with a few examples, because as a church, we want to be practicing this more in our community too. So if you don't know Kirsten, she's one of our leaders in our church, in our outreach team. She leads out with our playgroup and also with our ADRA projects as well. So Kirsten, do you enjoy serving in our church?
Oh, yes, very much.
Okay. Blue mic, we get that one. Why do you enjoy serving in Royal Oak Church?
Oh gosh, we've got such a great mix of people. We've got such an opportunity here in Royal Oak and Onehunga to meet people in our neighbourhoods. And being part of Playgroup, I've met a lot of families and mothers within our community, and it's a nice chance to get to know the family.
Yeah, great. And I understand that we've got a new project coming up, which is really new for ADRA and new for our community. Tell us about that.
Yeah, okay, so we've currently got an opportunity to work alongside ADRA, and it's a project called Welcome Baby. So some of you might have heard it because a few churches have taken it on, Glen Innes, Papatoe, Brentwood, and now us. So Welcome Baby is basically a project where ADRA has supplied us with a number of boxes. I've brought one to show you here today, and we're going to really seek out families that are in need, or young mums, single mums, who's had a baby or about to have a baby, and we're actually going to supply them with the types of things they need for a whole year for that child.
For a whole year? Okay.
Okay, so every 3 months we'll go to this family with a box like this. Each box is labelled in the front, so you can see it's either for a boy or a girl, and depending on the season, summer or winter. The box, this is a basic pack, so it contains a few nappies. It's got things like beanies, booties. This is a winter one, I think.
It looks winter.
So it's got a warm snuggly. All of the clothes are brand new, and each box is worth about $200. So a few things I need to say. We're not looking to just hand out boxes as a supply. This is an opportunity to nurture a family. So an opportunity for us to look out in our community, see where there's need. There's families that don't have other families or like their own family and friends. They're alone. Anyone who's had a baby, you know how tough it is at the beginning. It's hard to cook for the rest of your family. This is a chance where we can be that support for a new family or a young mum. Every 3 months we'll go back to we'll go back to the family and provide them with the next box. So they'll get newborn and then 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, etc. for a whole year. We're also going to supply them with food vouchers, and Sanitarium's going to supply them with things like Riceys, Wheat Bix, that sort of thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So notice here, the box is a nice gift, and it's something that we want to be giving to the needs in our community, but this is just a tool. The real key is the connection that we can be building with our community. We're not too good at that as a church. Perhaps you will have noticed. We love coming together, sticking in our own gates. So this is a tool for us to be connecting with those from our community. So to be clear, how can our people be involved with this, Kirsten?
Okay, so we really want to set up a system. We don't know who God's going to bring to us, so it would be great if you could pray about and contemplate what you could provide for a family. It could be that maybe you like cooking, and we find a family and they really need help with some meals. So if you let me know what you can provide, once God brings us that family, then we've got our system going. We're not looking for secondhand clothes for the babies. This is the first time a mum might actually get something that's brand new. And it's a time for us to show her, that her baby is worth something.
Yeah.
Often she'll be thrown with, secondhand things. We might need secondhand clothes if we come into contact with a family that already has older kids. So there might be a need there. So maybe think about that if you do have some really good quality secondhand goods. What else? And then of course we want to nurture that family. So maybe bring them, encourage them to come to our play group, or maybe if they need parenting advice, we could put them into contact with someone from the church, maybe Kay and Ian, that sort of thing. So if you pray about where you think God can lead you and help you with this family. I think that's
great.
Yeah.
So do any of us know any young mothers in our community or from your family around in Auckland? Oh, please don't let me be the only person here. Come on. The idea is, if you know someone who could really get the blessing with having new clothes for their children, this is a wonderful way for you to bless them and to pass on God's blessing too. So if you know of anyone and you'd like to be part of this, please come and talk to Kirsten or to Teresa Yaroshevich, who is Alexander's wife. We would love this to be something you can get involved with. I found this is a huge need among us. There are lots of new babies, and it's winter now, and sometimes it's just not as easy to get nice new clothes and all of the things that are needed to keep supporting the family. So please be part of this ministry.
So at the moment we have 8 boxes that really need to go out now. We're actually looking for mums, and if we find someone that's pregnant, we can also supply them with nappy bags, cot blankets, that sort of thing. So we also have supply boxes. Okay, I think that's...
Yeah, thanks and they're different sizes, aren't they?
Yeah, so ranging we've also got some prem, so if we... some for premature babies. So prem right up till 1 year. And it doesn't have to be a brand newborn. If you know someone that has a 6-month-old or a 9-month-old that just needs a little extra help, we can supply them with that. And they might only get 1 box because it only goes to 1 year, but at least that's something for them.
Great. Thank you, Kirsten. Thanks very much. So this is one way that we can be doing compassion together as a church. There are many other ways, but we just call us to be doing things together more as a church, as well as individually. Before we wrap up, I just want to bring our attention to a wonderful picture of where the healing really happens. I'll skip past here. So we need a home that is built on truth, on loyalty, but also compassion as well. Where compassion is seeing an issue, and instead of reacting and taking vengeance on it, we can have the heart of Christ and to create the environment for God to change and to meet the need there. So Jesus himself, he tells us in Isaiah 53 and verse 5, he tells us where the healing happens. It says, by his stripes we are healed. By his what? By his stripes. Perhaps there are some among us who are still dealing with some stripes, still dealing with some scars. And I really thank our leaders who are leading out in our Celebrating Life in Recovery program. This is something which is directly dealing with this need among us. But if you're yet to be able to look at working on the junk that we deal with, why not let Jesus' stripes deal with it? Why not bring it to him and allow him to start working out the rough edges? There's a story of a man who was commissioned to bring 2 pots of water from the well to his village every day. And as he would do it faithfully, he would carry 2 pots on the end of a rod. One of the pots carried water wonderfully. There wasn't a hole or a crack in it. But the other pot had cracks all underneath it. So, as he would carry water every day, he would make his way along the path all the way to the village, and he was so ashamed of the broken, cracked pot he had. So ashamed that he was actually about to go and replace it. As he was making his way back to the well one day, though, he noticed something remarkable that was right there on the side of the path. On the side where the cracked pot would go by each day, there were the most beautiful, fragrant flowers that had been blooming below. But on the side where there were no cracks, it was just a plain old dirty path. God longs to bring so much fruit and multiplying and growth and blessing through our cracks, church family. Will you let him? Will you let him? We're going to sing a closing song where the chorus simply says, Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. If you're looking for a way for God to heal, to work out the cracks, let's come and make him our all in all today. Let's stand and sing.
You are my all in all.
before we head home, I just want to give each of us an opportunity to respond to what we've heard today, especially for those who really know that they have cracks, and cracks which haven't yet been dealt with. Please bow your heads with me and close your eyes as we pray. And if you'd like to really give God whatever the junk, whatever the rubbish, whatever the crack is, I give you a chance to raise your hand as I invite you in a moment. To the God of heaven, we thank you today that in each of our lives, the stripes of Jesus are powerful enough to heal. And as we're waiting for Jesus to come back, we know that you can make such a difference through us, so long as you are able to work out the cracks. So for those who have rough edges, who are longing for you to work them out, I just invite you to raise your hand today so the Lord knows. Raise your hand with me if you have something that you would like our Father to take care of. So as the hands are raised, God, we give you permission today to not only heal, but to multiply the blessing around us. That through our cracks, you will heal and you will send a much greater story of your goodness to those who we come in contact with. So the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In Jesus' name, amen.